Over the weekend, the United Nations Security Council reimposed harsh sanctions on Iran over its nuclear enrichment program. Foreign correspondent reporter Jonathan Miller has recently returned from Iran, having been granted rare access to the country. He travelled to the Caspian Sea coast where, during their 12-day war, the Israelis successfully tracked down and killed one of Iran's most prominent nuclear scientists.
Nowhere, it seemed, was safe from Israel's strikes. The target was another nuclear scientist. Israel had tried to kill him on the first night of the war in his Tehran home. They missed him, but killed his 17-year-old son. The scientist and his wife headed to their Caspian hometown to bury him. Having failed to kill him first time round in Tehran, and having obviously figured out that they'd missed, they made no mistake at their second attempt. At 1:10 in the morning of the 24th of June, at least 5 Israeli missiles slammed into the ancestral family home of Dr. Mohammad Reza Seddighi Saber. Killed him and 14 other people, and wounded 33. Syed Ali lived opposite. His house had been destroyed, but his family had survived. He's a paramilitary with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Many were children, he said, and all to get one man. This was the work of a Mossad spy, he said.
به دینش به اسلامش به وطنش خوش رحم نکرد به بچه محل خوش رحم به همزبانی خوش رحم نکرد آدم فروشی کرد اون دیگه چی از اون داشته باشه اصلاحی که جنایت کرد.
Well, for more on this, we are joined now by foreign correspondents Jonathan Miller. And Jonathan, Israel's capacity to successfully target and kill Iran's top nuclear scientists and key military officials took the Iranians by surprise. Did they have their own spies inside Iran?
Hi, Gemma. Yes, indeed they did. And, you know, you can only assume that this will have been years in the making. Israel will have had a densely populated bank of targets ready to go when that green light was turned on by Netanyahu on the 13th of June. They knocked out 35 senior generals within a few days. In fact, they managed to even kill a replacement within 4 days of his going into office. They knocked out 14 nuclear scientists. That guy who I featured in that clip there they'd attempted to kill him in Tehran, they'd missed, they went and got him a second time. That speaks to intelligence on the ground. So the Israelis used a lot of technology in this, but they also had people on the ground. So you can imagine the witch hunt that went on. The regime went into a state of total panic and paranoia, and there was a roundup, 21,000 arrests, fast-tracked trials of accused spies, and in the weeks since, 10 Iranians accused of spying for Mossad have been put to death, have been hanged in Iran.
How difficult was it for you to get access there in Iran, and what sort of restrictions were placed on you while you were there?
Well, there were restrictions in that, you know, we had a government minder travelling with us all the time, so we couldn't speak to people in the way that you would normally when you make a documentary or a news report. People saw this minder over our shoulders, so we set in place a separate team working undercover who would be able to report for us and do interviews on our behalf with people who would then express their more genuine feelings. As to the difficulty of getting into the country, yeah, I mean, it's not like going to Bali on holiday. It's a difficult process, and you have to be very wary of your security. This is a do-not-travel destination, so you don't go in there lightly. I had the advantage of going to Iran last year with 4 corners, so I kind of knew the people and knew what to expect. But you go in there with your heart in your mouth to some degree.
And it wasn't that long ago that we saw people protesting in the streets, and we know that Israel's Prime Minister appealed to those Iranians to rise up during the 12-day war. that didn't happen. What sort of support does the regime have in Iran?
Dwindling, Gemma. I mean, look, it's hard to get a handle on exactly the numbers because it's an inexact science. It's reckoned that between 20 and 30% of the country actually is part of or supports or are beneficiaries of the regime. The rest, like that's 70 to 80% of the 92 million people of Iran, oppose this regime, want to see the back of it, frankly. And some of them were vainly hoping that Netanyahu's invitation to rise up might come true. It didn't. There was not regime change. They've survived. The undercover team we had doing interviews talked to one woman who basically said, yeah, we had hoped that Israel would finally finish the job for us. But I think this consensus among ordinary Iranians is that while they might have had 3 rebellions in the space of just 16 years against this theocratic regime, the impetus for rising up has to come from within, not be imposed from outside.
What impact will the sanctions have on Iran?
Oh, they're brutal. They've had sanctions in the past. There have been American sanctions this past 10 years. These UN sanctions will be crippling, as the saying goes. It'll mean that they can't get things that they need in normal life. The economy's already in free fall. There's 40% inflation. Ordinary Iranians will suffer, and that will only exacerbate the resentment of this regime.
And this conflict between Iran and Israel, is it over?
No. And in fact, people in both countries felt very strongly that this war was not over, which is why we've called our film Unfinished Business.
Jonathan Miller from Foreign Correspondent, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jenna.
And you can see Jonathan's full story on Foreign Correspondent tonight at 8 on ABC TV. And of course, you can view it on iView.